For Trump, the only case where it now matters that he is a criminal defendant is in New York, where Trump's trial reached its inflection point today, as DA Bragg's team has just told the judge today that the DA's office has proven its case based on the evidence, and thus intoning the well-known phrase, quote, "Your Honor, the people rest." That's today, in the only case that looks to be going to trial by the election. That means the prosecutors literally rest their case and take the position they've supplied enough evidence to prove each and every element of this crime, which they say Donald Trump committed, this felony, beyond a reasonable doubt. And that does something today. It hands control of the case, meaning the witnesses and requests to put in evidence and all of those things, back to the court, which can hear the defense's case unless the defense were to decline to mount one. And I could tell you tonight, we already know they are mounting one. So we are legally in the uncharted territory here. I told you about those other cases. They matter in various ways, and Donald Trump could clearly lose the election and go on to face trial in those cases. But in this unusual time, in this chapter of history that we're living through, the defense is now up after the prosecution has rested its case in the only case defendant Donald Trump faces by November. So we're approaching jury deliberation could start as soon as next week, and I could get into what we're counting with you. But prosecutors have finished their case now. And they ended basically with key witness Michael Cohen, who spent a record 4 days on the stand, including today's cross-examination by Trump's team.
The prosecution is quickly wrapping up its case in the first criminal trial of a former American president.
It could be the home stretch in Lower Manhattan. Michael Cohen back on the stand.
The defense wrapped up with Michael Cohen after 3 days of cross-examination.
It was a grueling 3 days. The prosecution started its redirect by focusing on the Stormy Daniels payments.
The prosecution has now rested its case. The defense has also just now called its first witness.
There's always this outstanding question of whether the former president will testify or not.
Judge Juan Merchan saying this morning that closing arguments will now happen after Memorial Day.
Cohen's time on the stand has proven pivotal. And it's clear both sides see it that way. They see him as pivotal and important. The Trump defense team's first witness was brought up to the stand today primarily to attack Michael Cohen further, which I'll get to in a moment. But Cohen's cross-examination continued to raise doubts about whether or not he's a credible witness. There were admissions that he stole, at least at one point, from the Trump organization. There's the way he's had to stress or admit that he has some kind of financial interest in this case, and being under oath, he confirmed, yes, he does, while also trying to show that a Trump conviction itself would not necessarily alter his current role or media activities as a commentator. Cohen arguing a hypothetical Trump acquittal would actually give him more to talk about in his various podcasts, media interviews, which, as we've mentioned, include on this and other news channels. If the questioning of Michael Cohen began with some big topics and clashes, I got to tell you, it wrapped up with a series of smaller lines of inquiry. And we just don't know if this will ultimately confuse the jury or just downright bore them. But you can think about it like this. Did Cohen recently lie about the core facts of this case? Big question. Did he possibly misremember which phone call was about a given topic? That's a small question, possibly pointless. And there have been skirmishes about his calls from 8 years ago. Prosecutors tried to get back to the focus and the bottom line, asking, for example, was he too busy in October 16 to get Trump's approval on the Daniels payment? And Cohen was able to confirm no. So the point there is that of all the different things that have happened, this payment to Stormy Daniels mattered at the time, and Cohen had enough wherewithal in the position to recall what happened as something that mattered a lot, even if other calls or points might be in dispute. Now, Trump's defense team also had made some progress raising doubts about whether Cohen was truthful about recent testimony within the recent recollections he had, including about this call that he says proves up the case because he confirmed with Trump on the phone at a certain call that he'd made the payment. So prosecutors returned to that topic today. They got a picture into evidence showing Donald Trump with the very same bodyguard that Cohen identified on that call, which appears to back up Cohen's version of events, that he could have called that bodyguard about one topic and then also quickly talked to Trump by phone about the hush money. And this is the date in question, and there is the bodyguard who was called. So this is an example of why we've said you have to take it all over time. It's why the jury has been told by the judge not to try to draw conclusions a day at a time. And if you're watching us at home on the news, you can draw conclusions, but that's your choice as a citizen watching. The jury has been told, even if one day ends with a lot of kind of suspicious sounding questions about, well, did Michael Cohen lie about that? Did he fake that? Did he not really talk to Trump about that call? The jury's been told, you're hearing the attack, you'll hear the response, and don't form a conclusion until you start to deliberate. So what looked like perhaps a more questionable thing under questioning last week, and Cohen didn't, to be clear, have the best answers on it, now has this extra evidence, this photograph, and a little more pushback on the idea of, yes, maybe what Cohen said is true. Maybe he made a call, even if there was this other thing about this harassment and prankster, and that's what he was texting the bodyguard about. But maybe he also then said, hey, hand the phone over to the boss. I got something for him. Hey, I made the payment. You could imagine neither of them wanted to spend that much time on the phone talking about it. And he said, I made the thing. Okay, done. Now, inside the courtroom, observers saw Cohen near the end here look at Trump, who did not look back, and then the DA rested the case. Now, the Trump defense began its case today. So after 19 days and 20 different witnesses, now the Trump team gets to show the jury what it's focused on, what it thinks the story is. I've told you before, they're not under a legal burden to provide a defense. And sometimes you have cases where the defense doesn't do anything, doesn't call any witnesses. Here, they are exercising that right. And again, it's not like they have to match. It's not like, oh, the other side got 20 witnesses, we have our own 20. You'd expect more prosecution witnesses because they have the burden of proof. The defense is just bringing on who they think can add the context or the story they want to tell. Now, covering a case fairly means looking at both sides, and this is the Trump side. But covering a case fairly doesn't mean pretending both sides are always equal. And I can just tell you, it was not a very strong start today for the defense. Trump's lawyers called a paralegal to discuss calls that were in evidence, and then they called a lawyer linked to Michael Cohen, who Giuliani and Trump have tried to use to discredit Michael Cohen. His name's Robert Costello. You may have heard of him. He was also called before the grand jury. Now, today, this lawyer, Costello, testified that Michael Cohen had told him Trump didn't know about the payments back when they first discussed this. In other words, the Trump defense then and now. But there are many problems with Costello as a witness. He's publicly attacked Cohen. He's been a quite obvious representative of Trump's interests. He's used his role in all of this to discard whatever privileges might have attached between him, a lawyer, talking to then Michael Cohen. Their client relationship was never all that clear, but he's gone out of his way to sort of show where he stands, and that's not all. Today, as a witness, Costello was rebuked by this judge for antics on the stand, including interruptions and apparently sort of out-of-pocket, arrogant behavior, which actually at one point led the judge to clear the courtroom. Now, this is unusual. It is a bad start for the major Trump defense witness on the first day that they're calling witnesses. The judge had to respond to Costello acting out because he was saying geez and sort of muttering on the side, and the judge said, quote, if you don't like my ruling, you don't say geez, you don't give me side eye, and you don't roll your eyes. Do you understand that? Costello said he understood. Judge Merchan then clearing the jury from the room to admonish Costello so that he wouldn't prejudice the jury further while also taking control of the courtroom. The judge also was heard saying to Costello, are you staring me down right now? This is the most heated moment we've seen in this high-stakes trial. Certainly the judge deciding there was a line that had been crossed by this Trump side witness. And it speaks to the way this defense witness was composing himself. He drew some tough headlines here on the first day of Trump defense's team getting control. Now, it's a heated exchange that could also affect whether the jury views Costello as credible, that and combined with whatever else he says and how he acts. The jury will be weighing whether they believe his version of events in the context of all of this, including how he comes across in court. So, what do we have? Well, Michael Cohen is the central figure here. Note that when all is said and done, all the strategy and all the second guessing, Michael Cohen was the DA's final witness. And probably the witness who spent the longest time on the stand, best we can count at this point in the trial. And now Michael Cohen is the focus of this testimony by one of the defense's first witnesses. So what do we take from that? If they could prove this case without Michael Cohen, the DA, they probably wouldn't have called him at all. They didn't bring up Karen McDougal. She was the other person who was a party to one of these hush money payments. There are people at the National Enquirer they didn't bring up because they had the top guy. They didn't think having the deputy or the other writer at the Enquirer mattered when you have the guy at the top who was in the room with Trump. There are all sorts of places where they said they had enough. With the underlying transaction and Michael Cohen's knowledge of what he says was Donald Trump's intent at the time, which was clearly stated, clear campaign crime according to Cohen, they needed Cohen to prove that case. And here what we see is the defense is worried about that. It's not enough that they cross-examined Cohen and felt like they scored enough blows. They brought up Mr. Costello, who is, and I think it's fairly proven, a weaker witness than Mr. Cohen, whatever his problems are that I've told you about. But they brought up an even weaker witness here who caused more antics today. Why? Because the defense is still worried that they're going to believe Michael Cohen. And even if they think some negative things about him, like he's a crook, or he's a tax cheat, or he's a sometime liar, each of the things I just said, he's admitted to. Even if they think those things, they might still believe him on the core question of what happened in 2016 and is he telling the truth about it now? And that is why Mr. Costello, warts and all, antics and all, admonishments and all, was hauled into court today to say in one more way, don't believe what Michael Cohen says Donald Trump did in that sordid election scandal of 2016.